All right, guys, so we're back up at the bush camp this weekend, and I've got Todd with Central Oregon Survival Network is up here too. So if you hear some pounding and sawing in the background, that's him working on his shelter for the evening. But for me, my shelter's done. Got the tarp is up, and my fire reflector is all ready to go. So it's time to move on to some different things and why I wanted to have this camp out here in the first place. And that's just to kind of have a place to hang out and kind of screw around with some different bushcraft and woodcraft type skills. So this weekend I thought what I would kind of focus on is my Flint and Steel kit, and I haven't used my Flint and Steel in shoot almost a year, and so I'm going to be well out of practice. I do have some charred punkwood still in here, so we'll use it. But I do need to go out and start gathering stuff for tinder and get some other items to put back in here so I can replenish this if I do get a fire started. I haven't used this in a long time, and part of the reason is because I have a hard time finding flint in our area. Actually, I don't think there is flint in our area, but I did come across when I was hunting this last year a huge area of quartz. That was just quartz littering the ground. So I stuffed my pockets full and brought it all home. So that's what I'm going to use today. Now, as far as fire making ways go, I think Flint and Steel is really interesting because to me it's one of the most sustainable ways to continue to make a fire on into the future. If you were in a situation where you were going to be out in the woods for long term and you needed to make a fire, have the ability to make a fire, often I think Flint and Steel is the best, one of the better choices. We know lighters will run out of fluid, matches will eventually run out, and even a ferro rod will eventually wear out pretty quickly. But a steel striker, is going to last a good long time. And if you can find resources in your area as far as a rock that is hard enough to chip little chunks off that steel striker, then you should be able to get yourself a fire going every day. And another cool thing I think about Flint and Steel is, like a bow drill or a hand drill, it really teaches you about proper tinder and gathering proper tinder. If you don't have good tinder set up, you're going to have a very, very difficult time. And that's going to be a challenge for me a little bit today because we've had some fog and everything in here has been wet already, but now we've kind of had some fog and it misted a lot. And so what I'm going to need to do is go out and find some tinder and try to get it dried out before I even start to build the fire. Another thing too for me about Flint and Steel that I find interesting is just the mechanism of how it works. The fact that you're taking a rock and you're hitting a piece of steel and chipping off a tiny little bit of iron. And for those that are not familiar, and I'm not going to go into a ton of science in it, there's websites out there that can explain it far better than I can. But basically, iron is pyromorphic, and when you expose raw iron to air or oxygen, it starts to oxidize, and that oxidation process causes heat. Now, in most cases, the iron is large enough to where it can dissipate a lot of that energy, and you might feel some warmth, but it's not going to just flame up on you. But when you're using a Flint and Steel, you're chunking off just the tiniest little piece that it gets exposed to so much oxygen so quickly that it glows red, and that's your spark. So that alone, to me, it just makes Flint and Steel just a very interesting method for starting fires. But anyhow, I've jabbered on long enough, and I need to get out and start kind of gathering up the items I'm going to need to get my fire started today if I'm going to make this work. All right, guys, so I'm up on this hillside. I wanted to come up here because it's a little bit more exposed to the elements as far as wind and getting more sun. So I hoped that I would find some drier materials than what I find down in the drainage where we're camped. So I'm just taking my knife here and just cutting some of this grass, and I'm going to gather up quite a bit of it And like I said, it's still got a little bit of dampness to it, so I'm going to gather up quite a bit of it and we'll stuff it in my pocket. And when I hopefully later on in about 2 or 3 hours when I'm ready to start my fire, it'll be dry enough to accept a small ember from my char. So I'm going to go. I want to try to find some more stuff, so we'll keep moving on. Alright guys, so another thing too is I need to find some small sticks. A lot of the stuff that I have around the camp is so wet that it won't even snap. But I've noticed as I was gathering some old man's beard off this tree, these tree branches here are snapping pretty easily. So I'm going to gather up a whole bunch of this so that I have some dry small stuff to get the fire started. Alright, so now I'm looking for some more punk wood to help replenish my char when I use what I'm going to use tonight. And I'm looking for something specific, not just any dead wood. I'm looking for something that kind of has a spongy feel to it. And I've been digging through this log and I've kind of found what I'm looking for. It's a little damp, but it has a nice spongy feel to it. It's not crumbly like other dead wood it can be. Like, for example, this here it's wet, so it's probably a little spongier than it would be, but this is just very crumbly, and it's hard. It's kind of hard, so it will char. But I've had a hard time personally getting a spark on these to light up and create an ember. But if I use a piece that has kind of a bit of a sponginess to it, then the ember will stick on it, and it seems to take a little better for me. So that's kind of what I look for here, is something that has just a bit of a, kind of a sponginess to it. So all right, so I've gotten to the point now where I'm ready to start my fire. I've got the grass and stuff that I picked earlier. I also put in some shavings. There's some pine wood shavings and some dry pine needles in here that I'm going to use as my tinder bundle. I'm not completely satisfied with this, because even though I had it in my pocket all day, or for most of the day, I can still feel like there's a bit of dampness to this. So I'm really not sure how well this is going to work out, but we're going to give it a try anyhow. I also got some smalls off to the side here, so that if I do manage to get a flame going, first of all, I got to actually get an ember going in my can. But then if I can actually get this going, then I also have some smaller wood here that we can use to get the fire going. So let's see what we can do here. Now I'm going to be using a small steel striker. I actually got this from Justin Wolf at Wolf Customs. And then, like I said earlier, I'm going to be using a piece of quartz. Like I said, we don't have flint in this area, but quartz does seem to be around in certain places, and it throws sparks pretty good. I don't know if you'll be able to see that from there, but you can see that it does throw some sparks. So let's see if we can make this work. All right, so I'm gonna bring this a little closer here, guys. So you can see I do got ember going there. So now let's see if we can't get this thing to go. All right, guys, so as you can see, the fire is going now. It took a little coaxing after I got the grass going. I didn't have that part in frame, so I didn't figure I'd bore you guys with that part. I did have to do quite a bit of, just gentle blowing on the fire and coaxing it to keep that grass going because it was damp. But I eventually did get it to go, get it to get some wood going, and now I've got a nice little fire going here. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to continue to practice that skill while I'm at the bush camp. And but you can just kind of see where, it's really important to have good tinder, a good bird's nest to blow in the flame. And like I said, that one was not ideal. It was not as dry as I'd like it to be. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my dry, or my punk wood that I gathered earlier, and I have it sitting up there trying to get it to dry a little bit because it is moist, and I'm going to put it in my can, and we'll start the process of charring some more punk wood so that way I'll be ready for the next fire. And again, that's part of that thinking ahead process of making sure that in order to keep this as a sustainable way of making fire, you need to make sure that every time you have fire that you're keeping your char replenished. And I personally myself don't like using the cotton. To me, that's not sustainable. In order for me to, I really want to use the punk wood because that's something that I can gather here that's a natural material that I can utilize. And that to me is a more sustainable method than using cotton. You can start off with cotton, but then you have a consumable. Then you're in the same situation as if you're using a Bic lighter or a ferro rod or any other type of device that starts a fire that consumes the resource. This way, there's plenty of dead wood out here, punk wood, that if just keep my eye out, I can find, and I can continue to replenish that resource anytime I need to. But so I'm just going to stick my can in there and get that charring so it's ready for the next fire. All right, guys, so I pulled my tin out of the fire, and I like to let it cool plenty before I decide to open it, just to make sure that it doesn't catch fire. I usually kind of wait till I can basically touch it with my bare hands. So as you can see there, it's all nice and charred and ready to go for my next fire. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video so far on making a fire with flint and steel. I'm definitely no master at it by any means. I just kind of like to dabble with it here and there. I think it's just a great way to improve my skills in fire making. If you're interested in learning more, Justin Wolf has a lot of videos. If you go to his channel, which is the Gree Wolf channel, I'll put it in the description down below, a link to it. But he's got a lot of great videos on it, and he's much more schooled at it than I am. But anyways, guys, until the next video, I'll see you guys later.